My ex-wife left me and our babies to find real love, built a new family, then demanded I pay her husband's kid's summer camp, so I took her to court, and now she is begging. Alright, brothers throwaway for obvious reasons cause my ex would literally lose her, __, if she saw this. But I've been biting my tongue for years, and I'm done playing the nice guy. Alright. So I'm 38, male, divorced, got 2 badass kids who are basically my whole world, and an ex-wife who seems dead set on making co-parenting feel like a hostage negotiation. Just recently hit my limit with her nonsense. But let me rewind a bit so it all makes sense. Back when I was 27, I was living pretty chill. Had a decent job, went to the gym, hung out with my boys, just minding my own business. Then one day, I met this barbecue my buddy Phil threw, and that's where I met my ex, Brittany. She was across the yard laughing at something, looking like she stepped out of a commercial. I made some dumb joke about the burgers being extra crispy. And she actually laughed. Thought I was being smooth. 8 months later, we're married. Yeah. I know. Hindsight's 20/20. At first, it wasn't bad. Not amazing, but not a disaster either. Then she got pregnant with our son, Declan, and I was over the moon. Like genuinely the happiest I'd ever been. I still remember holding him for the first time. Little guy had my eyes and her nose, and I just stood there with him wrapped up like a Chipotle burrito, trying not to cry. Those early days were wild. I'd work all day, come home, and still pull the night shift so she could sleep. One night, Declan just wouldn't chill. I walked circles around the living room for like 3 hours straight, singing everything I could remember. Dude finally passed out on my chest, and I just froze. Didn't want to move. Didn't want to wake him. And honestly didn't care that I had work in the morning. I felt like, yeah. This is where I'm supposed to be. But something shifted after those early weeks. Brittany just changed. Became distant. Started finding flaws in everything I did. I'd come home from pulling overtime to help with baby expenses, and she'd barely look up from her phone. You didn't fold the laundry right. The baby's been fussy all day and you're just now walking in. Must be nice to escape. I'd be standing there exhausted from a 10-hour shift, wondering what the hell happened to us. Still, I tried. Made breakfast before work. Took night shifts with Declan. Tried planning date nights. Nothing worked. There was this one night, maybe 3 months after Declan was born. I planned this whole surprise for her. Got my mom to watch the baby. Made reservations at the restaurant where we had our first date. Even bought her this necklace she'd been eyeing before she got pregnant. I was hyped, thinking this would be our turning point. I came home early with flowers, told her to get dressed up. Her response? She sighed like I just asked her to climb Everest. I don't feel like going out. Can't we just order pizza? I tried to hide my disappointment. I thought it would be nice to have some time, just us. Mom's already on her way to watch Declan. She rolled her eyes. Fine. Give me 30 minutes. Those 30 minutes turned into an hour of her scrolling on her phone while half-assedly getting ready. Dinner was awkward as hell. She spent most of it texting, barely making conversation. When I gave her the necklace, she said, "Thanks." With all the enthusiasm of someone being handed a grocery receipt. Then asked if we could go home because she was tired. I remember driving home in silence, the necklace box burning a hole in my pocket, wondering if this was just a phase or if my marriage was already over. Then boom. She was pregnant again just as Declan was turning 1. That's when the real mess started. She'd be texting constantly, but if I walked in the room, she'd flip the phone over. Classic sketchy behavior. I'd ask who she was talking to, and she'd get defensive. What? I'm not allowed to have friends now. You're so controlling. I wasn't born yesterday. Something was off. The pit in my stomach got bigger every day. One night, I got up to check on Declan and saw the glow of her phone in our dark bedroom. It was 2 a.m. Who the hell texts at 2 a.m. except someone you're into? I didn't say anything, but I started paying more attention. She'd take her phone to the bathroom. Step outside for fresh air during dinner. All the classic signs. After our daughter Zara was born, things got real shady. One night, Brittany's phone lit up while she was in the shower. Message from some guy named Jason at work. I missed talking to you, too. Not subtle. Emotional cheating. No doubt. I didn't confront her right away. Just observed. She started pulling away even more. Always on her phone. Cold as ice. One night after the kids were down, I brought it up. Something's off. We don't talk. We don't connect. Feels like we're just roommates now. She didn't even blink. I'm tired. I pushed out 2 of your kids in 2 years. Sorry, I'm not in the mood to play happy wife. This isn't about playing anything, I said. It's about basic respect. She snapped. Maybe you should have thought about that before getting me pregnant again. I just stared at her. We both wanted Zara. Whatever. I'm going to bed. And just like that, the switch flipped. I was done chasing something that wasn't there anymore. But I kept showing up for the kids. Handled what needed handling. I just stopped expecting anything from her. She wasn't my partner anymore. Just someone I shared a roof with. And honestly, the silence was easier than the constant digs and cold shoulders. For months after Zara was born, I come home from work and there's effing divorce papers on the kitchen table. No discussion. No attempts at counseling. Just. I'm done. I deserve better than this. She told me, standing there like she was the victim. You're cold and unavailable. I wanted to scream. I wanted to show her the 57 unanswered texts I'd sent her over the past month asking if she was okay, if we could talk, if there was anything I could do. I wanted to point out I was the one getting up with the baby at 3 a.m. while she was too tired. But I looked at my kids. Declan, barely 2, and baby Zara. And I knew a nasty divorce would, them up. I remember that day like it was burned into my brain. I'm in the kitchen holding the divorce papers and it's quiet. Too quiet. Declan's on the floor building something with his blocks. Zara's knocked out in her swing. And I'm just standing there, looking at the end of the life I thought I was building. But frankly, I was already out. Emotionally, I'd been gone for a while. I looked at her and asked. So, is there someone else? Jason? She didn't flinch. Just said. This isn't about another person. It's about us not working. It wasn't a denial. I knew then what I'd suspected for months. So I swallowed my pride and agreed to a 50-50th split of everything. Assets. Custody. No child support since we both had decent jobs. I remember signing those papers feeling like I just cut out part of myself and handed it over. The hardest part was moving out. Setting up a little place nearby and sitting alone that first night while my kids slept across town. I sat on the floor of my new apartment. Just a mattress. A TV on a milk crate. I scrolled through pictures of the kids on my phone until the battery died. Then just sat in the dark, wondering how the hell my life had imploded so quickly. Those early single dad days were brutal. I'd be pumped to see the kids, then instantly overwhelmed juggling a toddler and a baby. First time Zara got sick, I panicked and called my mom at 2 a.m. She calmed me down. Told me it was just a fever. I stayed up all night watching her breathe. By morning, she was fine. And I knew I could handle this. The custody exchanges were awkward. In the beginning, we'd meet in the parking lot of a Starbucks, barely making eye contact as we transferred car seats and diaper bags. Declan would cry sometimes when I had to leave him, which effing gutted me. Zara was too young to understand what was happening, but Declan knew something was wrong. "Why don't you live with us anymore, Daddy?" he asked one day, his little face serious. "How do you explain divorce to a 2-year-old? Mommy and Daddy love you very much, but we decided we can be better parents living in different houses." He thought about this for a minute. "Can I have 2 rooms?" Kids, man. Resilient as hell. About a year after our divorce was final, Brittany met a new guy named Derek. Surprisingly, she didn't run to Jason, which basically showed me her true color. This dude Derek walks around like he's God's gift to parenting, despite being a part-time marketing consultant, which really means he works like 20 hours a week while Brittany pays most of the bills. They got married when Declan was 4 and Zara was just 2. And suddenly my kids had a stepsister, Lyra, who's the same age as Declan. Then they popped out another kid, Nathan, who's now 7. The first time I met Derek was at a preschool drop-off. I was helping Declan hang up his backpack when this dude in an Ed Hardy shirt in 2016 seriously walks up with Brittany. "Hey, you must be the ex," he said, extending his hand with this smirk that made me want to punch him. "I'm Derek. Heard a lot about you." I shook his hand, keeping it brief. "Wish I could say the same." He laughed too loudly. "Well, the kids seem great. Declan's been teaching Lyra how to build with Legos. They're like 2 peas in a pod." Something about the way he said it, like he was already claiming my son, made my jaw clench. But I kept it civil for Declan's sake. "That's nice. Declan's always been good at sharing," I said, ruffling my son's hair. I still remember the first time I dropped the kids off at their new place after their wedding. Brittany had decorated the front door with this wooden sign that said, "The Johnson-Ellis Blended Family," with all their names painted in different colors. My last name nowhere to be found. Even though it's literally my kid's last name too. I said nothing. Just another battle not worth fighting. The real kick in the nuts was when Declan came home one weekend and casually mentioned, "Daddy Derek said he's going to teach me to ride a bike." He announced it while we were eating dinner. I nearly choked on my pizza. "Who's Daddy Derek?" "Mom's husband." He said it like I was the idiot for asking. He said I can call him Daddy Derek because he's like my other dad now. I had to step outside for a minute to collect myself. When I came back, I kept my voice light. "You know, bud, you already have a dad." "Me. It might be less confusing if you called him just Derek." Declan shrugged. "Mom said I have to call him Daddy Derek because it's respectful." That night, I sent Brittany a text. "Can we talk about this Daddy Derek thing? I'm not comfortable with it." Her response came an hour later. It was Declan's idea. "Don't make this a big deal." I knew that was, __, but what could I do? Force my kid to call this guy something else? That would just confuse him more. So, I bit my tongue again. Meanwhile, I busted my ass to make sure my kids had everything they needed at my place. Got promoted twice at work, saved like crazy, and managed to buy a modest but nice house in a good school district. My whole life became about giving Declan and Zara stability and opportunities. Derek, though, this dude had the audacity to start with the passive-aggressive comments every time we were at the same school event. One parent-teacher night, I'm standing by the science fair projects. Declan built this sick robot arm that could pick up marbles. And Derek sidles up next to me. "Hey man, how's that new car? Must be nice having all that disposable income when you're only responsible for 2 kids." I was driving a 5-year-old Honda that I'd bought used, but okay. "It gets me from A to B," I said, trying to keep it civil. Some of us understand what sacrifice means for a blended family, he continued, gesturing to his designer watch that definitely cost more than my car payment. I just walked away. These interactions happened constantly, but I kept my cool. For the kids. There was this field trip where I volunteered as a chaperone. So did Derek. 6 straight hours of him talking loudly about the vacation they were planning to Hawaii, the new gaming system he bought, all the kids, and how challenging but rewarding it is to raise 4 children. He kept referring to Declan and Zara as our kids when talking to other parents, which made my blood boil. During lunch, he sat across from me while the kids were playing. You know, the kids really struggle with the back and forth, he said, unwrapping his fancy-ass organic sandwich. Brittany and I have been thinking it might be better for them to have one stable home base and just visit you on weekends. I nearly choked on my water. Excuse me? He raised his hands. Just thinking about what's best for the kids, man. No offense, my custody arrangement isn't up for discussion, especially not with you, I said, keeping my voice low so the kids wouldn't hear. He shrugged. Just something to think about. Brittany says you've always put the kids first, so I figured you'd want to know they're struggling. It took everything in me not to flip the table. Instead, I got up and went to hang out with my kids, who seemed pretty far from struggling as they laughed and played on the jungle gym. The real problem started when Brittany began expecting me to treat all her kids as my own. It started with little, asking me to bring birthday presents for Derek's daughter when I came to pick up my kids. Don't you think it's rude to show up with gifts just for Declan and Zara when Lyra's standing right there? She'd say it like I was some monster for not buying presents for a kid who wasn't mine. Then it escalated to her suggesting I should take Lyra on outings when I had my weekend with my kids. It's confusing for the kids when you only take 2 of them, she'd insist. They're all siblings now. I tried to be diplomatic at first. I'm glad they're close, but my time with Declan and Zara is limited, and I want to focus on them. That didn't fly with her. Wow. Way to make a little girl feel excluded. Real mature. This guilt-tripping, went on for years. I kept my boundaries firm, but still got painted as the villain. Meanwhile, when I'd pick up my kids, they'd talk about how Dad Derek bought them all tickets to Disney, or how they went on a ski trip as a real family. One weekend, Declan was oddly quiet during our drive home. When I asked what was wrong, he finally admitted. Mom and Derek were talking about you last night. They didn't know I was listening. My stomach dropped. What did they say, buddy? He looked out the window. Derek said, you're selfish and don't care about our whole family. Just about looking like the fun dad. I gripped the steering wheel so hard my knuckles went white. That's not true, Declan. I love you and Zara more than anything. I know, he said quietly. I told Mom that was mean, and she said I shouldn't repeat private conversations. I had to pull over because I was shaking with anger. I took a deep breath, turned around, and looked my son in the eye. Declan, I never want you to feel caught in the middle. If you ever hear something that upsets you, you can always talk to me about it, okay? No secrets. He nodded, and I could see the relief on his face. Okay, Dad. The subtle digs at me not being part of their real family made my blood boil, but I never said a word to the kids about it. They didn't need to be in the middle of adult. As the kids got older, Brittany's financial demands got more ridiculous. When they were 7 and 5, Declan and Zara both showed serious academic potential. I researched and found this amazing STEM-focused private school, Westridge Academy. Tuition was steep, $12,000 per kid per year, but worth every penny for the education they'd get. I brought up the idea of enrolling our kids in an elite STEM school and offered to cover 100% of their tuition to Brittany. Instead of being excited, she immediately turned it into a guilt trip about Lyra. Said it wouldn't be fair if all 3 didn't go and called it divisive. She tried to pressure me into paying for Derek's kid too. I held my line, told her I'd pay for Declan and Zara, and the rest was on them. She was furious, but guess what? They still enrolled Lyra using Derek's parents' money. These conversations happened constantly. Every expense, every opportunity, every gift I provided for my kids became a battleground where I was expected to extend the same to their bonus siblings. Last spring, something finally made me snap. My kids, who are so brilliant, by the way, got selected for this super elite tech camp called Tech Future in Colorado. Only 40 kids nationwide got in. 40. And my two were among them. Declan's a coding prodigy who built his own mods for Minecraft by age 9. And Zara is this robotics genius who won the state competition with a trash-sorting robot she designed. I was so goddamn proud I nearly burst. They worked their asses off on the applications, staying up late finishing demo projects, writing essays, the whole nine. I still remember when we submitted the applications. We were at my kitchen table. Declan nervously checking for typos. Zara bouncing in her seat as she uploaded videos of her robot in action. "What if we don't get in, Dad?" Declan asked, his finger hovering over the submit button. "Then we try again next year." "But I think you've got this," I told him. When the acceptance emails came a month later, we were all together at my place. I let them check my email after dinner. The screams when they saw, "Congratulations," could probably be heard 3 blocks away. Zara literally did a victory dance on the couch, and Declan kept reading the email over and over like he couldn't believe it. I took them out for ice cream and promised them new laptops for camp. Their excitement was infectious. It was one of those perfect moments as a parent when all the sacrifices feel worth it. The program cost $7,800 per kid plus flights and gear. Almost $20,000 all in. I didn't even hesitate. I'd been saving specifically for their education since the divorce. Driving an old car, living in a smaller place than I could afford, skipping vacations, all so they could have opportunities like this. When I mentioned it to Brittany during our monthly co-parenting check-in, her reaction told me everything. She didn't say congrats or act excited for them. She got this calculating look that made my stomach drop. "So, Lyra is also interested in robotics," she said, completely ignoring our kid's achievement. "Yeah," I replied, already sensing where this was going. "I think it would be really good for all 3 of them to have this experience together." I took a long sip of my coffee before answering. "Brittany, this isn't a family vacation. Declan and Zara earned spots in a competitive program." She leaned forward, lowering her voice. "Well, there must be a way to get Lyra in too. And you should cover it since you're paying for Declan and Zara." I actually laughed, thinking she was joking. She wasn't. "You want me to pay almost $8,000 for your husband's kid to go to camp?" I asked just to clarify I wasn't having a stroke. "Our kids are siblings," she insisted. "It's damaging to them when you create these divisions." "No. But what's damaging is teaching them that achievements don't matter and that they're entitled to things they didn't earn." I shot back, her face hardened. "Is that how little you care about their relationship with their sister? They're going to resent each other because of you. They're going to resent you if you keep trying to take away special moments they earned," I said, keeping my voice firm. "This isn't up for discussion." She stood up, gathering her purse. "We'll see about that. Don't be surprised if the kids start saying they don't want to go without Lyra. Are you seriously threatening to manipulate our kids over this?" She gave me a cold smile. "I'm just saying that family should stick together. Maybe you've forgotten what that means." I left that coffee shop with my hands shaking. Not from fear, but from restraining myself from flipping the table. The freaking audacity, man. The next day, Declan called upset. Brittany had told him they shouldn't go to camp if Lyra couldn't. Classic guilt trip. I reminded him he and Zara earned their spots and shouldn't give that up. He still wanted to go, just needed to hear it was okay. After the call, I texted Brittany to cut the manipulation. She replied with a thumbs down emoji. Real mature. But if you think that was the end of it, you don't know Brittany. 2 days after the camp discussion, I'm at work crushing this presentation I've been prepping for weeks when I received a text from Derek. We need to talk about your contribution to the family housing situation. I nearly choked on my coffee. What the actual hell? I ignored it. Figured it was some power move, that would blow over. But that Friday, when I picked up the kids, Brittany handed me a printed spreadsheet along with a letter, like we're in the goddamn 90s or something. While the kids grabbed their bags, I looked at the spreadsheet. Basically, it was highlighting 50% of their $2,400 rent. She claimed my nicer neighborhood was creating an unequal environment for Declan and Zara and said I should cover half their rent for consistency. I reminded her that my house, my money, and their living situation was none of my business. She doubled down, saying it was about the kids' well-being, as if I hadn't sacrificed everything to give them stability. Then Derek showed up like her backup singer and had the nerve to say, a real man would support their whole household. That was the moment I realized this wasn't about the kids. It was about them wanting me to bankroll their life. I felt a wave of heat rush through me. The effing audacity of this dude questioning my manhood while asking for my money. I've never been in a fight as an adult, but in that moment, I understood why people throw hands. You know what a real man does, Derek? I said, stepping closer. He pays his own bills instead of asking his wife's ex-husband to subsidize his lifestyle. Derek's face went red. Watch yourself, man. The kids are nearby. Then maybe don't start, during pickup, I shot back. And for the record, a real man doesn't use children as pawns to extort money. Brittany stepped between us. This isn't extortion. It's co-parenting. But clearly you only care about yourself. I laughed. A genuine, this is so absurd, laugh. Co-parenting doesn't mean I pay your bills, Brittany. It means we both take care of our children. Our children. Not Derek's kid. Not your new baby. Declan and Zara. I called the kids to leave. As we drove away, I could see Brittany and Derek watching from the doorway. Both looking pissed that their little ambush hadn't worked. I gripped the steering wheel so hard my knuckles went white. Dad, are you okay? Zara asked from the back seat. I forced a smile. Yeah, kiddo. Just thinking about what movie we should watch tonight. Back at my place, after the kids were in bed, I sat on the back porch with a beer, feeling like I was going crazy. I called my buddy Phil, who'd been through a similar divorce situation. Dude, am I being an here? Should I be helping them financially? Phil didn't hesitate. No. You pay for your kids' expenses, school, health insurance. That's your responsibility. Their household bills are their problem. But what if the kids are suffering because their house isn't as nice? Are they suffering? Do they have food, clothes, their own beds? Yeah, of course. Then they're fine. Kids don't care about square footage, man. They care about being loved and safe. Don't let them gaslight you. He was right, of course. But the guilt trips were so constant, so relentless, that sometimes I questioned my own sanity. Was I being selfish? Was I hurting my kids by not playing along with this one big happy family fantasy? I stayed up half the night before finally remembering that having boundaries doesn't make me a bad father. Little did I know, this was just the warm-up for what, came next. A week after the rent stunt, I showed up to what I thought was a normal parent-teacher meeting, coffee in hand, ready to hear how well my kids were doing. Instead, I walked into an ambush. Brittany, Derek, and the counselor, all sitting there with serious faces. Turns out Brittany had turned it into a surprise intervention. She claimed my inconsistent parenting was emotionally harming the kids because I only take my own kids on outings, won't pay for Lyra, and live in a nicer house. Basically, I was being accused of not funding their fantasy of one big happy unit. I sat there in disbelief as Derek whipped out his phone and started showing photos from their family vacation to San Diego. See how happy all 4 kids are together. But then when he takes just Declan and Zara, it creates this artificial separation. My face felt hot. Every instinct was screaming at me to walk out. But I forced myself to stay. Brittany jumped in, acting like she was on stage. Fake tears and all, claiming Declan came home crying because he felt guilty Lyra couldn't go to camp. Total fiction. The kid had been bouncing off the walls about it for weeks. Then Derek piled on. Zara's been acting out because I treat her differently from her siblings. The same guy who barely knows her schedule suddenly thinks he's got insight into her emotions. That's when I cut through the noise. I told them straight. Zara doesn't have siblings at my house. She has a brother, Declan. That's not confusing. That's the arrangement you agreed to when you signed the divorce papers. Brittany shot back. You refuse to acknowledge their blended family reality. I reminded her. Their reality is 2 households. That's what they wanted. That's what we live. Then Derek leaned forward. You're just threatened because they have a complete family with us. But punishing the kids because of your insecurity isn't fair. I locked eyes with him. A complete family? You mean the one where you tell my son he's stuck with you? The one where my daughter gets guilt-tripped for being accepted into a program she earned on her own? That's your definition of complete? Brittany started gasping like I just insulted her bloodline. I shut it down fast. Save it. I've seen the messages. I've heard it from the kids. This isn't about emotional health. It's about you trying to control the narrative, and my bank account. They kept circling the same script, playing victim, painting me as the villain for not towing their fantasy of one big happy unit. And when that didn't work, that's when Brittany dropped the mask completely. If you can't see how your behavior is harmful, we might need to revisit the custody arrangement. We're prepared to file for primary custody on grounds of emotional neglect. The room went silent. I felt like I'd been dunked in ice water. They were threatening to take my kids away because I wouldn't pay for their stepdaughter's summer camp, because I wouldn't subsidize their rent. Let me be crystal clear, I said, my voice calm. Despite the rage building inside me, I have never and will never neglect my children. I've provided them with every opportunity within my power. I've been there for every important moment of their lives. If you're suggesting otherwise, you'd better have evidence beyond the fact that I won't pay for Derek's kids' summer camp. Brittany smirked. We have plenty of documentation about your unwillingness to support a healthy blended family environment. The courts take that very seriously these days. Something inside me snapped. Not in a rage way, but in a crystal-clear clarity way. I'd been playing defense for years, trying to keep the peace, biting my tongue. And for what? So they could try to take my kids. I stood up, collected my things calmly, and looked Brittany dead in the eyes. We're done here. Any further communication about custody can go through my attorney. I walked out, my heart hammering in my chest. Got to my car, closed the door, and just sat there for a minute, hands shaking. They were threatening to take my kids. My kids. I felt this weird mixture of panic, rage, and oddly enough, relief. Relief because finally the gloves were off. No more gray areas. No more benefit of the doubt. I made 2 calls from the parking lot. One to the best family law attorney in the city, and another to my buddy Phil who works in digital forensics. For the next month, I went full stealth mode. On the surface, nothing changed. I kept the same custody schedule, stayed civil during pickups and drop-offs, and didn't engage with any of Brittany's baiting texts. I'd smile, nod, act like nothing was wrong. But behind the scenes, I was building a freaking fortress. Phil recovered all deleted texts between Brittany and me going back 3 years. Every manipulative message, every demand, every threat, all documented. I gathered financial records showing everything I'd paid for the kids since the divorce. School tuition, medical bills, extracurriculars, everything. I recorded every pickup and drop-off conversation, legal in my state with single-party consent. I collected the rent demand letter and other written requests. I had my attorney draft affidavits from teachers and coaches about my involvement in the kids' lives. One particular afternoon stands out. I was at Declan's coding competition, sitting in the audience when I spotted Derek and Brittany across the room. They didn't see me. I watched as Derek checked his watch repeatedly, looking bored while Declan was presenting his project on stage. After Declan it finished, Derek immediately stood up and started heading for the exit while Brittany was still clapping. I recorded the whole thing on my phone. I even installed a dash cam in my car that recorded conversations during pickups, catching gems like Derek telling the kids, "Your dad just doesn't understand how families work." And Brittany saying, "Maybe if we ask Santa, he'll convince your dad to stop being so selfish about the camp." My lawyer took one look at the stack of evidence I handed over and started organizing it like she'd been waiting for this moment. No questions, no hesitation, just straight to work. Every receipt I kept, every line they crossed, she lined it all up like chess pieces. I didn't need a pep talk. I could tell by the way she moved. This case was solid. And they were about to find out exactly how badly they miscalculated. I'd stay up late after the kids went to bed, organizing all this evidence, writing down every detail I could remember from past conversations. Some nights, I'd get so caught up that I'd realize it was 3 a.m. and I had to be up for work in 3 hours. I was running on fumes, but driven by this primal need to protect my relationship with my children. There were definitely moments of doubt. Times when I'd wake up at night in a cold sweat, wondering if I was being petty, or if this would hurt the kids in the long run. But then I'd remember. I didn't start this fight. They did. They threatened to take my kids. There's no coming back from that. Meanwhile, Brittany got bolder. Thinking her threats had worked, she sent me a formal email, which went straight into my evidence folder, demanding I pay $8,500 for Lyra to attend a comparable summer program to make things equitable. I didn't even dignify it with a response. Then she started CCing her sister and mother on emails about the kids, creating this echo chamber where they'd all reply all about what a terrible father I was for not supporting the whole family. My favorite was from her mother. A real father figure would want all the children to have the same opportunities. Shame on you. I forwarded everything to the lawyer without comment. The real turning point came when Declan texted me late one night. "Dad, can I come over tomorrow instead of Friday? Mom and Derek are fighting again about money. Derek said you should man up and help them since they're stuck with your kids half the time." Reading those words felt like taking a baseball bat to the chest. Stuck with my kids like they were some burden. I screenshot that text even though using my son's message as evidence broke my heart. The next day, I picked up Declan early. In the car, he told me Derek said I had a nicer house because I don't support a real family and that I made Lyra cry by not paying for her camp. "Does that stuff bother you?" I asked. He nodded. "Makes me feel like we're a problem, but I know we're not." That was it. Final straw. I filed for 70/30 custody with strict communication boundaries and all contact going through a court-monitored app. When they got served, my phone blew up. Calls, texts, even her mom chiming in. I didn't respond to any of it. 2 days later, Brittany cornered me. "Is this about the camp?" I told her flat out. No. This is about you and Derek weaponizing our kids because I wouldn't fund your life. She stammered some weak denial. I shut her down. Save it for the judge. From now on, talk to my lawyer or use the app. A week later, Derek tried to confront me in the school parking lot, throwing out the usual jabs about lawyers and calling me selfish. I didn't even give him eye contact, just nodded toward the dash cam, recording everything. That shut him up fast. He walked off without another word. The weeks leading up to the hearing were tense AF. Brittany started love-bombing the kids, buying them gifts out of nowhere, taking them to amusement parks on school nights, letting them stay up way past bedtime. Classic alienation tactics. I documented everything but didn't say a word to the kids about it. Meanwhile, I just kept our routine stable. Homework first, then fun, regular bedtimes, home-cooked meals, the boring, consistent parenting that kids actually need. My lawyer prepared me for what to expect. They're going to paint you as controlling and jealous of their happy family. Don't take the bait. Let the evidence speak for itself. 6 weeks later in court, I showed up ready. The evidence spoke for itself. Texts, financial demands, recordings, even the kids' own words about being pressured. Brittany's lawyer looked rattled. The judge wasn't impressed with the excuses either, especially after reading the message where Derek called my kids a burden. Their attempt to paint me as uncooperative backfired hard. The judge shut it down, made it clear I had no obligation to support kids that weren't mine, and called their threats a clear case of manipulation. In the end, I got 70-30 custody, strict communication rules, and official confirmation I owed nothing for their so-called blended family. Bonus, they had to cover all my legal fees. Every cent of the $14,380. Walking out of that courtroom, I didn't feel like I'd won. I felt like I'd finally stopped letting them write the rules. After the court dust settled, I bought a house closer to the STEM Academy, modest, efficient, and fully ours. I set up a tech room for the kids, gave them their own space, and on day one, we built gaming rigs and stayed up way too late playing Minecraft. That night, pizza on the floor and sleeping bags, no furniture yet, and more peace than I'd felt in years. All communication went through the parenting app from then on. No surprise texts, no fake emergencies, no emotional blackmail. Brittany hated it. I didn't care. Everything was on record now. The kids thrived, more relaxed, more open. No more walking on eggshells. Zara even asked if it was okay to be happy with me. I told her it always was. While they unpacked, I had a courier drop the $14,380 legal bill at Brittany and Derek's place. Along with a note. My commitment is to my kids, not your lifestyle. Petty? Maybe. Necessary? Absolutely. Declan and Zara crushed that tech camp. They got invited back as junior mentors. I sent the acceptance through the app. No commentary, just results. 6 months out, things are calm. Declan got into an elite coding program at 13. Zara's robotics team is heading to nationals. And me? I finally remembered who I am outside of the chaos. I've started seeing someone. She's a teacher. Smart, grounded, zero drama. First date felt unreal. No talk about custody. No emotional landmines. Just actual conversation. But the moment that made everything worth it. Declan looked up from his computer while we were coding and said, "I'm glad you stood up to Mom and Derek. It was getting weird before." That's when I knew I made the right call. Not just for me, but for them. I'm not just surviving anymore. I'm living, and no one's draining me dry.